Kia ora, Dee from Waipa District Libraries. Thanks for joining us. Today's special presentation is Let's Talk About Anxiety. It's hosted by Claudia Lachey.
Yeah, my name is Claudia. I live in Cambridge for now 5 years. I'm originally from Germany. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, also neurolinguistic programming practitioner. Most people know it as NLP. It doesn't really matter. It has all to do with the mind. And this is one of the main things we're going to talk about today. I'm here today because I feel that anxiety has become an epidemic, and I want to share some knowledge, some experiences that I've made with clients, with myself too. I've suffered from anxiety for quite some years, and I believe that you can't really resolve what you don't understand, so it's always good to understand what's going on, identify maybe where it stems from, and then you can take action. And this taking action is all about the mind, which is my area of work, or it's a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and I don't want to go too much into details, but just so that you gain an understanding and go home today and have something that you can do or try or advise someone, try with someone, and hopefully feel better soon. So, as Dee already said, I just assume some of you are affected yourselves and some are here because a loved one is affected. Just because it makes a difference, and I would talk about both. Can I ask how many of you are here because a child, and child is up to the age of 14, 15, is affected? Okay. From the age of 14, 15, these are all adults. It's the same. Okay. So I would like to start with just some facts and numbers, so that you know you're not alone. Then going into root causes, where anxiety actually stems from, and then giving you some practical tips. And if there is time at the end, and just for the ones who want to, we could do a short meditation or not. That depends on if you would like to, and just experience something that might calm your nervous system down. Current or recent numbers from the Ministry of Health indicate that anxiety in children has gone up to 4%. In teenagers, from the age of 15, or teenagers and young adults, it's gone, last year it's gone up, or the recent numbers are from last year, it's gone up from 5% to 25%. Yeah, so young people, and you can see the lighter purple is females, darker purple is males, and I don't have the numbers to prove it, but I don't believe this is because anxiety appears more in female, but it has something to do with roles, gender roles, and who goes and sees a doctor to get diagnosed or not. And but I think these numbers are, for me, they are worrying. Adult numbers, as you can see, 500,000 New Zealanders are affected, which is every 10th New Zealander, and it's the same in other countries as well. So you're not alone, and I think with these high numbers of every 10th, you can say that anxiety has become the most common mental health illness, not just in New Zealand, in all Western states. Being anxious is a normal state, and it's a healthy state, because when we are anxious, when there's a threat, a perceived threat, it takes our nervous system into fight, flight, freeze, and so we can react accordingly, and that's actually good. But when these feelings of being under threat and causing these stress symptoms in your body and in your mind become persistent and ongoing, and you have intrusive thoughts on an ongoing basis, then it's no longer normal and it's no longer healthy. And so if those feelings of worry and fear are persistent, we speak of an anxiety disorder. And an anxiety, or in general, anxiety disorder is the most common diagnosis, and then we have social anxiety, we have health anxiety, we have selective mutism, especially in children, and specific phobias. But general anxiety disorder or a mood disorder is so we could also express it as anxiety is a struggle with uncertainty and the fear of the unknown, the fear of not being in control. This is not the official definition, this is more my definition of everything that I discover with clients, and clients finding out where the root cause actually is or where it stems from. So the most common anxiety symptoms with general anxiety disorder are feeling restless, wound up, irritable. You have difficulties controlling these feelings or these thoughts, these worrying thoughts. Some people have an impending sense of danger. These thoughts become intrusive and persistent. They even can become an obsessive-compulsive disorder. Some of you might have heard about this, but I don't want to go more into this. I don't want to get any ideas into your head. Having the urge to avoid certain things that trigger anxiety, being easily fatigued, having difficulties concentrating, having sleep problems. I haven't listed it there, but it's also having sexual problems, which is more, for adults, of course, not for children, but it's really common in both males and females. Experiencing stomach aches, feeling nauseous, having an increased heart rate, breathing rapidly, sweating, trembling, having headaches, muscle aches, chest pain. So these are the more obvious symptoms that some of you might have experienced. But there are other symptoms that we don't always commonly associate with anxiety. They are more they're not always so apparent. There is a perfectionism which stems from the urge or the need to control everything, excessive planning, people pleasing or saying yes often, apologizing often for things. It becomes like a habit, trying to control everything, doing everything on your own, not being able to delegate, which can become hard when you're in a position in your workplace and you want to do everything yourself. Then people often burn out or are just overworked, checking things repeatedly. So these are all things of doing too much because you have the fear of losing control and you want to have the control, you want to feel that you're in control. On the other hand, we have, of course, the opposite too, which is underdoing, not doing what you think you're supposed to do. It has all to do with avoiding things, procrastinating, not fully committing to something. Excusing yourself a lot when you're supposed to meet people or when you meet them, and then for several things. Sometimes when you meet people, you find yourself zoning out. You could say it's daydreaming, but it's a common symptom with anxiety. Avoiding connection in general, either in person, get-togethers, even texts and emails, and not taking chances because it feels like it could be risky. Possible results or side effects of these habits, behavioral habits that you have taken on is feeling alone, being isolated or feeling isolated, feeling ashamed because you feel different with what's going on, not wanting to talk, not wanting to admit you're feeling like a victim and you are not a victim, or people are not a victim but they often feel like it and no one wants to talk about this. feeling disconnected because of avoidance strategies, and binging, social media, TV, food, alcohol. There are lots of things that you can just, let's say, dive into to avoid everything that triggers you. So what does it look like in your everyday life? So it makes life harder, that's for sure. For some people they are having difficulties to go to gatherings, maybe a birthday party. For children, it's going to birthday parties, maybe even going to school, going to sleepovers. For adults, could be calling a customer service, could be tricky or different. Going to work functions, traveling, because it's the unknown and you don't know where you're going. Could be driving in your car on the highway, being in a high traffic area, moving somewhere. So these are lots of normal situations. Can trigger anxiety or feeling of no longer being in control by going to the supermarket or something else. And sometimes people say or wonder, well, let's stay with the supermarket. Why do you don't want to go there? You never had a bad experience with the supermarket. But that actually doesn't matter, because it doesn't stem from an experience with the supermarket. It stems from something completely different. But then over time, you get into like the anxiety becomes like on overdrive. I get into this a little bit later, and it has nothing to do with the original triggering situations. And a lot of times people are not even aware what caused anxiety in the first place. It's a lot of times it can even be something that you have experienced in your early ages, 3 years old, 4 years old. It's all possible. But what happens is, especially in times now with COVID, with worrying about what's going on with the economy, with mortgages, this can trigger something that was kind of sleeping inside of you, and then it just goes off like a wire. Because before you get worried about living with those symptoms, and there were a lot, I just want to make sure that you know, even if you experience some of these, it doesn't have to be like this, and you don't have to be anxious or stay anxious for the rest of your life. Clients can report actually after a few weeks already working with their mind, with their conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and they're doing this by themselves. I'm just leading them. So it's not about me. You have the power inside of you. It's an innate strength that you have. You can change your programming. You can change what's going on in your mind, and that's what it's all about. So no one was born anxious, so this means you don't have to stay anxious. All you need is to understand how the mind works. And so on this little sheets or papers, so the front page, there are a couple of principles people have found over time, so that's not, I haven't invented this. And I have just printed the 9 most popular ones, or the most important ones, and I will go into all of them a little bit later, a little bit more in detail, and if you want to take notes, then you can do so. First of all, I want you to understand, or to get a little bit into this, how anxiety develops or where it stems from, because I believe when you understand where it stems from, then you can change it and you can do something about it. And it's also the question, either for yourself or if it's a loved one. I know from my own experience, you think, why does this happen to me? And there is not really an answer to this. But knowing that you can change something, I think is really empowering, and you don't have to feel like something is happening to you. Anxiety mostly stems from experiencing or an experience in the past of not feeling safe, feeling insecure, unsupported, experiencing something that leaves you feel helpless, powerless, or not feeling good enough. So these are the most common root causes. And when you feel helpless or powerless, this means that whatever it was that you experienced, it's just something that at this stage or at this age you didn't know how to cope with. And this can be something not threatening. I would say a little example is from a client, lady, and during hypnosis she discovered it was just a scene that came up, and she saw herself as a 3-year-old girl in the garden with her mom, hanging up the washing, and her mom said, "Can you give me some pegs?" And she reached for the pegs, and then one of the pegs fell down. And what the mom did is she picked it up and carried on. And in this moment, the little girl thought, well, if mom picks it up, even though she asked me to give it to her, that must mean I'm not good enough, or I can't do the job. And it was the first experience she made like this, believing something about herself like this. And then when you go through life and something similar happens, and you find yourself like, oh, that's interesting, I've thought this before. So kind of situations add up. And your mind always wants to be right. So it looks for proof that what you're thinking is right thinking. So it kind of looks for situations that prove that you're right with this, that you're not good enough, or that you're not able to do the job. And so, as you can see, things add up. And I like an example of a pearl necklace. So first situation that happens is just one pearl, and you think, okay, I can't do the job. And then something else happens, and it's the next pearl, and the next, and the next. And so one pearl isn't the problem, but the more pearls you add, the heavier the necklace becomes. And at one point it can become suffocating, can become a weight on your chest, on your shoulders, just figuratively speaking. So these are situations, as I said, sometimes it's obvious when something happens. What causes anxiety could be physical or emotional abuse, neglect, losing a loved one, being bullied or socially excluded, maybe even experiencing racism, something like this. That's very obvious, but other situations are not so apparent. So when you don't know how to cope with something, and your body goes into fight, flight, and freeze, it releases stress hormones. And this isn't bad if you would like to run. And there are two main stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. And usually once the threat is gone, adrenaline resolves in, it takes about 2 minutes, cortisol takes about 20 minutes. So that's not too bad. But as I said, your mind wants to be right, and it wants to prove you right. So at some point, your mind, because it wants to make sure that things like this never happen to you again, it's a survival mode, it looks for threats to be prepared. And what happens then is it always looks, it's always wary, it's always cautious, and then your brain starts to produce stress hormones again to be prepared. And at one point, your body becomes addicted to stress hormones. And it's indeed a physical addiction, like if you're addicted to alcohol or something else, some other drugs. And this is what most people don't know, that there's actually a physical addiction going on, always looking for something. Once you know this, it's so much easier to understand what you need to do. So we need to interrupt this stress cycle. When we know it doesn't take so long to resolve the stress hormones, then we know, at least for adrenaline, 2 minutes, well, that's not too bad if I can distract myself for at least 2 minutes until the hormones resolve, then I can get out of the situations, out of the situation where I'm just in, where I find myself in. Yeah, so this ongoing thinking of, okay, where's the next thread, what's going on, looking out for something, means that your mind keeps you in a constant state of worrying about the future and living in the future. And I'm not sure if you call this ruler in English, a measuring stick or something. It just brought it to visualize. So if you would imagine this is your life, and it's like a river, you never touch the same water twice, and it's the same, so if this is you, and here is your date of birth, and you can only move forward. There's nothing else. So if you're maybe here, and you're just looking forward to the future and you're worrying about this, you're not here where you actually are. You're not living in the present. And this is what a lot of people experience, and not present. Some people worry about the past experiences, and feel triggered by trauma. They are also not here where they are. The power is in the present. And there's where you interrupt the stress cycle. So in not acute or non-acute moments, you can start to become more present. And there are some easy things you can do. And one, for example, is an appreciation exercise, because when you look around and you find something that you can appreciate, then you are present and you are here in the moment. And you can just say, so right now I appreciate all the lovely people that came today. Right now I appreciate my family. I appreciate that someone is there who cares for me. And if you want to take this even a little bit further, you could have like a little pedal, for example, in your pocket, which you carry around if you have pants on. And every time you feel it, or put your hand in your pocket and maybe you find a smooth one and you can even just play with it. So it makes you aware, okay, maybe I can find something I appreciate. And it's just getting into the habit. It feels a little bit like an exercise, but for your mind, it's actually just, we want to change habits, and we want to be this to become your default mode instead of always worrying, always feeling stressed. So this is one thing. This doesn't work when you find yourself in an acute trigger situation. You're stressed and your body is on high alert, so that doesn't work then. So, but still, we want to interrupt the stress cycle. And so there are a couple of emergency tools that you can use then when you experience these physical symptoms we were talking about before. So, and one are different breathing exercises. And on the, I think it's a second sheet. Yeah. It's called Calming Techniques for Children, but it's not just for children. You can have a read through, and I tell you my favorites and the adult favorite ones. So the first favorite adult ones is number 6. It's called square breathing, although I don't like square because it can trigger something. So it says you breathe in maybe on the count of 4, then you hold your breath on the count of 4, you breathe out on the count of 4, and you pause again on 4. But for some people, just holding their breath can trigger something, so I don't like that. And I always say, make it a rectangle breathing. So you breathe in on the count of 4 maybe, then you pause for 2, then you breathe out on the count of 4, and you pause for 2. This is far more calming. And you can just count, but you can also add something. You can breathe in and you can say, I breathe in calmness. I breathe out gratitude. breathe in calmness, and I breathe out gratitude. What your mind does is, because our mind is constantly thinking, I breathe in calmness. Okay, so where does the calmness stem from? So where is the calmness? It's looking for calmness. You put your focus on calmness, and it tries to find calmness. So that's the first good thing. When you say, I breathe out gratitude, brings you into the present again. What can I be grateful for? So it takes probably 20 seconds to do this. Just breathing in deeply and out. And you will instantly feel how your nervous system calms down and you interrupt the stress cycle. So this is one thing. If you have children at home, you can do the wave breathing, where you cover your ears and you breathe. Children find it kind of cool, or rocks and socks. It has something to do with muscle tension and then releasing. Another good technique also for adults is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is number 2 here. You can do this also when you feel triggered. You find 5 things that you see, 4 things that you touch, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you taste, and 1 thing that you smell. Brings you back in the present because you become aware of your surroundings, and it takes a couple of seconds usually, and you take your focus from whatever your symptoms are to something else, and it's all about switching focus. So through all of the other ones you can just have a read through and try by yourself or try with your children at home. Most children really like it, and they love if they have something that they can use and no one sees it. You can do breathing exercises wherever you are and no one knows, which is a great thing. Another thing, I said number 3, rocks and socks, it's about tension. What animals do if they are stressed or feel threatened, and if some of you have dogs, you might have witnessed this or observed this before. If they have been threatened or chased or whatever, once the threat is over, they shake. Doesn't take long, they just shake. Physically getting the tension out. And you can do so yourself. Of course, you wouldn't do it in the classroom or if you're standing in the supermarket, or whatever. But then you could even do something like this. And for children, or if you're at home, you can also dance, you can do jumping jacks. Just a couple of seconds is enough to get some tension out. And we could try it here, but I don't want to trigger anything. Also singing. You can also sing something. This also produces happy hormones, which is good. And another thing, it's just knowledge for you. Excitement and being nervous is the same physical reaction. So when we are nervous and we feel these physical symptoms, we get even more nervous or even start to panic. But when you know that if you would be excited, it would trigger the same physical reaction. Just this knowledge can calm you down. And you can actually say to your body and to your mind, what I experience is just excitement. I'm excited. I'm not nervous. I'm excited about going there. I like that challenge. I like discovering new things. And you're just talking yourself into a different feeling with the same physical sensations. Another thing is are essential oils. Essential oils have been proven through a couple of studies, through smell you take on. They just trigger some neurotransmitters which then produce happy hormones. There is another sheet, but we will get into this later. That you, instead of the stress hormones, that produce better feelings. These ones I brought, and you can take one later. don't put them on the skin, please. Just put them on your clothes or whatever. You can use them as an anchor too, which means if you use them in situations when you feel comfortable, when you feel content, when you are completely relaxed and you smell, so this is peppermint. If you have something other at home, you can use this too. And you smell it. What your mind does, it combines these two. And whenever you then find yourself in a triggering situations and you would have oil with you, you can just smell it and your mind makes a connection like, oh, peppermint oil, calming down. So before we look at other solutions, just a little bit more where it stems from. As I said, feeling not enough, feeling powerless or hopeless. All these feelings go hand in hand or trigger certain fears. It's the fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of abandonment, and in the end it's a fear of not being in control, or the fear of the unknown, or not being safe. So all these fears trigger a coping strategy, something that you invent to survive. These coping strategies can also be, sometimes it's more like an armor that you put on to protect you from whatever is going on. But when we have invented this armor, for example, as a child, it might not serve us as an adult any longer. But all these coping strategies, programming, these armors, they are all stored in our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is just a big storage. It doesn't distinguish whether something is right or wrong, serving us or not serving us, beneficial or not even if it's true or false. It just stores. So if you want to get rid of something, you need to access your subconscious mind and reprogram this. And it might sound not easy, but it actually is. It just sounds very crazy or special. The difference in children and adults with anxiety is that as adults you have usually lived, or even as teenagers, with anxiety for quite some time, and so you have adapted your lifestyle. I wouldn't call it an anxiety lifestyle, but you get into the avoiding lots of things, and you have adapted your habits, your behaviors. With children, it's different. Usually there was one triggering event, and from this time on, they feel anxious. So for them, it's also easier to change this. With children, I like to explain it a little bit like this. So I have a diamond then, and I say, so this is you. And when you've experienced something, you have taken on beliefs about yourself that are actually not true. And then we write them down and we put them on the diamond. And then something else has thought about themselves. Oh, I'm not good enough. And no one wanted to play with me, or actually they were bullying me and I didn't feel safe. So you can see what's happening at the end. The whole diamond is covered. And just to visualize this, saying, well, these are actually just things you have taken on in your life, and it's easier if you've taken them on, you can just remove it. And you're still as shiny and bright and sparkly and beautiful and wonderful as this diamond. And actually, a diamond is the strongest thing in the world, and you are like this. And so if you have children at home or would like one for yourself, grab a little diamond later. It can remind you that you're a beautiful image. So, okay, understanding how the mind works is the basis for change. When you understand how the mind works, you can use it to your advantage. So on the front page there are principles of the mind. I have principle 9. And just in a matter of 3 months or less, you can change your life completely around if you want to. I wouldn't say that it's not some work. Yes, it is work, because you have to consciously and repetitively do certain things in your life. But you can do this just by yourself, and the only thing you need is to make a decision. I no longer want to live this like this, and enough is enough. I have a little video clip for you, just because I think that when you can see something, it's easier to understand and also to work with this. Programming in your mind are connections between neurons. And whenever you think something repetitively, 2 neurons connect with each other. It's like a highway of nerves or a pathway. If you don't have a connection for feeling, I'm worthy, I'm good enough, you can't think that. So you need to create it. And research has found out that it actually takes 21 days to create and to strengthen. So that's doable, 21 days. Then it takes another 21 days to make them really thick and sturdy, and another 21 days that you use them habitual, that it becomes your default and you don't even have to think about this. This in total makes 63 days, which is 9 weeks, so that's doable. So it just 15 seconds, the little video. So when you watch closely, you can see all these little like tentacles try to reach each other, but once they connect, you have a pathway. It's like a syncing pathway for everything you have ever learned in life. And so we also know that has nothing to do with anxiety, that you can build these pathways up till the age of 90, 100. It's never over. That's called neuroplasticity. So when we think like, okay, I'm getting older, I'm forgetting things, and so it doesn't have to be like this. So we just need to use our brain. We need to do things again and again to strengthen pathways in our brain. Okay, so the first principle is the mind learns by repetition. So if we know this from children, they need to do things again and again, and then they got it. And it's the same for us as adults, but the advantage children have up till the age from 0 to 7, they learn so much faster. They just observe things and it goes really easy. For us as adults, it takes a little bit longer, so we need to repeat certain things a couple of times. If you have a child that is affected, but also you can also use it for loved ones. The last page are some things that you can say to your child to encourage it to move forward. But it's not just for children. It's just some ideas. These are not mine, but I think there are some good ideas, and it's a good reminder. You can also say these things to yourself, because you are the most important person. So as I said, the mind learns by repetition. 21 plus 21 plus 21. So the next one is the mind likes what's familiar. That's why we stay in comfort zones and why we try to avoid getting out of our comfort zone, because it's unfamiliar. But what comfort zones actually do is they don't keep us safe, they keep us just stuck. They keep us limited because we can't look beyond and we can't explore anything else. I like the analogy of a fish in a fishbowl on the shelf. These little round ones. And so if this is your comfort zone, would you want to swim in this comfort zone for the rest of your life? So a fish can only grow depending on how big the bowl is. So imagine this fish would live in a fish tank, or even in a pond, not to speak about the ocean. So think about this fishbowl as your comfort zone. If you want to grow, you need to step out of your comfort zone. And that doesn't have to be that you have to challenge yourself like doing crazy things. It's just tiny little steps. If you're concerned about going to the supermarket, maybe you go to a little dairy with someone. That could be a first step. Or you go there are people that are afraid to leave their houses and they just start with their garden, a couple of steps. And then the next day you do it again. And then the next day you step out the front door, a couple of steps. So tiny steps. So principle number 3 is every thought you think causes a physical reaction and an emotional response. This means that everything starts always with a thought, not a feeling or something. So everything starts with a thought. And these thoughts or your thoughts influence how you feel. How you feel then determines how you act or react, or sometimes not act. And in the end, it determines your outcomes, your result, and your experienced reality. It's actually a good thing to know this, because if everything starts with a thought, you can change your thinking. And when you change the way you think, everything else will change too. How you feel. So your body bears no grudge or something. So you can start every moment of every day. You just start to change how you want to think about something, and then from that onwards, things you start to feel differently. And if you find yourself that you think, okay, these are so intrusive thoughts, I can't change them, then you can at least change how you react to them, just by becoming aware of this and not letting this all run on autopilot. An example, a birthday party, but could be any party, could be for anyone, children, likewise adults. Being at a party and thinking, no one talks to me. I feel exposed, I feel rejected, I feel ashamed, not good enough. It must mean something is wrong with me, I'm different. And there are 4 questions that can really help, and I would encourage you to write them down. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, or any other situation, this is how you can start to change your thoughts. What's the story I'm making up here? And the story is all based on your belief set. So your response on autopilot is, no one likes me, because you have lived like this and thought like this for quite some time. So what's the story I'm making up here? And then you would ask yourself, is this really true? Does this always happen? So for example, with this client, okay, no one likes me, is this true? Does this always happen that people ignore me? Is this true that they don't like me? Actually, I don't know if they like me. Okay, so question yourself. Or this belief, not yourself, question this belief. The next question is, how do I feel if I believe that story, or if I believe that thought? What do I feel if I think no one likes me? Well, I feel actually really bad about myself. So if I'm not feeling good, I want to change this. And then ask yourself, who would I be without that thought? Who would I be if I wouldn't think like this? And this shifts your attention or your focus on something else. So the next one would be number 4, the mind responds to the pictures we create and the words we say to ourselves. We create our imagination. And our imagination is actually one of the most powerful tools that we have, but we as adults, we often don't use our imagination. Children do all the time, but we only use imagination if we start to worry about something. We picture everything that could go wrong. But we can also use it in the opposite. And our brain, which is a part of our body, doesn't really know what's going on, if this what we see in our mind is real or not, and it doesn't care. So if you imagine the worst outcome that you can picture, your body just reacts accordingly. But if you imagine a different outcome, a better outcome, then your body reacts to this too. And this is just the crazy part, because you could imagine whatever you want. And this determines if your brain sends out stress hormones or good feeling hormones. The other part of this principle is the language. So the words we say to ourselves. If we beat ourselves up again and again, I know I'm not good enough, I know I can't do these things, I'm not worthy of, or I don't deserve these things, then it becomes habitual and we always feel like this. But you can change this around, and you just need to become aware of what you're actually telling yourself. And some simple examples are, don't say, I struggle. I struggle with. Rather say, I like a challenge. Feels different. Don't say, I am anxious. Rather say, I experience anxious feelings. Because if you say, I am anxious, you make it your personality. It means you are like this all the time. If you say, I experience anxious feelings, this just means like, okay, moment it's like this, but that doesn't mean that in 5 minutes it's still the same. Never say my anxiety or my depression or my migraines, whatever. Don't make it you. It's just something you experience. It's the anxiety, the depression. And the last one is a little bit tricky. Your mind can't understand negatives. That's something no one has ever taught us in school. And we use them all the time, but our mind doesn't get it. If you say, I don't want to feel anxious, this is what your mind gets. I want to feel anxious. That's all it picks up on. Oh, anxious. Oh, yeah, you can have that. So turn it around. Rather say, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm whatever it is. Just find something that suits you. Number 5 is whatever you focus on, you get more of. It means whatever you put your attention on, that becomes bigger and bigger. If you put your attention on all the things that you're worried about or that worry you, you start to worry even more, even harder. I know some people say, well, I can't do this, but I would encourage you, if the news worry you, don't watch the news. If what you see on social media brings you into a state of constantly comparing or being worried about certain things, don't do social media. If you find that some people in your life trigger you, don't surround yourself with these kind of people. Boundaries. Whatever you focus on, whatever you experience, you get even more of. Number 6, your self-image is like a blueprint that your mind and body work to make your reality. And your self-image is everything you think about yourself, so your thoughts and your beliefs. And you can imagine your blueprint, your self-image like a thermostat. You have set a temperature in the room. This is what you think about yourself, and it doesn't matter if you open the window will always regulate back to the temperature that you have set. So if you want to change something, you need to change your self-image. You need to change the temperature that you have set on the thermostat. So you need to change what you think about yourself. And this starts with becoming clear on what is it actually that I'm thinking about myself. And if you have a moment at home, you can just sit down, no one could disturb you, and you just write some things down, whatever comes to your mind. And then you can sit there and you can even take a piece of paper, and not a wet one, fold it in the middle, and everything you think about yourself that you say to yourself on a constant basis, right on the left-hand side, and then you leave it there, and next day you sit down and you question yourself, you question your beliefs, like what we had with the 4 questions. Is this true? Or is this a story I keep on telling myself? Have I questioned this in the last couple of months, years? What do I know to be true about myself? And you can write these things on the right-hand side. So your body and your brain doesn't really know the difference if you experience something or if you just imagine something. I would like to invite you to a little exercise, and this is nothing that triggers anything, it's something really positive. I would encourage you to close your eyes because it makes it easier to imagine something. It's an imagination exercise. So I would like you to imagine how you would like to be. Not how you are, but how you would like to be. How you would like to speak. How you would like to act. How you would like to dress. How you would like to connect with others. How you would like to show up. How you would like to look like. All the areas in your life that you would like to improve or would like to change, just imagine it. And if you're short on ideas, sometimes it helps that when we have someone in our life that we really admire or adore and think, sometimes I would like to be like her or like him. Just add these traits to your imagined self. So imagine her or him just standing in front of you. Look at her or him. See how confident they are, how content and relaxed. And then you can imagine to walk around them, and from behind, just step into them and try to feel how this would feel if this were you. Just experience yourself as your best possible self or your next level self. Take a deep breath and open your eyes again. And if you found this to be a positive experience or something calming, this is something you can do every time at home. It just takes a couple of seconds. But it helps to change your self-image, the image you do, the thermostat. Okay. Number 7 is imagination is more powerful than knowledge. And we know this from negative situations. When we worry about something, we imagine something really bad. It doesn't matter what kind of knowledge we have, just our mind goes off and we worry about something. But knowing this, we can also use to our advantage. So imagination is the most powerful tool we have. And if you use it to think about pleasant situations or about how you would like to be, you start to interrupt the stress cycle again, and the third page are the 4 steps feeling hormones that your body produces. And it's dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And I've just listed a couple of things. I don't want to go through them all. But these are things that you or your loved one, child, whoever, can do to engage your body and your mind to produce more of these better feeling hormones instead of stress hormones. And this doesn't just help with anxiety, it has to help also with depression, which sometimes goes hand in hand with anxiety. So this is just for your information. So number 8 is, first you make your beliefs. Could have happened in early years, at the age of 2, 3, sometimes it's at the age of 14, 15, and sometimes we create even beliefs at the age of 40, 50, 60, doesn't really matter. So first you make your beliefs, and then your beliefs make you, means then your beliefs function or work as a thermostat that create your self-image. But knowing this, that you create your beliefs, gives you the power that you can also change your beliefs. And sometimes it's hard to start. And if you just ask yourself, so what does it cost me to hold on to my beliefs? And what does it cost me to hold on to this current self-image? I'm not going out. I'm having difficulties connecting. I don't want to list all of these things again. And then you can ask yourself if you want to carry on or not. It's a moment that you make a decision and start to work with your mind, that everything changes. And the last one is your mind cannot hold two conflicted beliefs or thoughts, and actually your mind cannot hold two thoughts come together. It doesn't matter if they're conflicting or not. So when people always say, oh, I'm multitasking, they may do two things at the same time, but they are not entertaining two thoughts at the same time. Your mind can't do this. When you know this can help you also to interrupt what's going on up there. So if you think something boring, you just do something differently. And sometimes if you're really stressed, you can't think of something differently, but you could sing a song. If you engage your mind in remembering or recalling the song, it's occupied. Or you could do something like tapping your thighs and counting. And for an adult, it's easy to 1, 2, 3. It's just automatically. That's not, something that's really hard for you. But you can count in twos. You can count backwards, or you can say, I only count my right side. So 1, 3, 5. So you need to sing. Don't sing the ABC song. That is some of the trouble. It doesn't work. But it's a simple thing, or a simple trick that you can do and that you can use. So just installing or just thinking a different thought, distracting your mind, distracting your body, interrupting the stress cycle. So all in all, or as a conclusion, it's a combination of conscious and subconscious work that you can use. So subconsciously it's reprogramming your mind, installing better beliefs. What do you want to think about yourself? And consciously it's doing these things, consciously implementing new habits into your life, stepping out of your comfort zone, little tiny steps. You can make it maybe a rule, like one thing a day, one tiny thing, that's enough. And then it's like a plane getting airborne. So once you gain momentum, no one can stop you. And no one and no thing should have the power over your life other than you. So I encourage you to take the power back.